And I do hope that you have, you can actually see my screen and also my skin clearly, and you can also hear my voice clearly as well. Yeah. And today we are going to continue our discussion on the issues related to social, economic, and also environment. Um, I I suppose that we are being joined by students from civil engineering class, as well as a student from aerospace engineering. Yeah. I understand that Professor Rahim cannot join us this morning, and he has a meeting in I think in March, and I do hope that aerospace engineering student just please feel at home, and you can ask any questions. You can write in the chat rooms. Not just you. I mean all the students. Please do so in the whole session that we have today. So if I can continue, if we can continue now. Remember that last week we we introduced what we call as national and also international frameworks. Yeah? So I believe that when we want to discuss about the social, economic, and environmental issue, the best way is actually trying to relate them with what we have, in what we call as a national framework. In the case of Malaysia, we are looking into two important national framework. One, what we call as a Vision 2020, and that was introduced in 1990 and ended in year 2020. And from year 2021 to year 2030, we have what we call as a shared prosperity vision. And I believe other countries. I'm sure that we have students from some other countries here. Every country have their own visions, and we believe that in each of these country, the vision must include the aspects of these three important aspects: society, economy, and also environment. And I hope you can relate the discussion that we have in this class with whatever that you have in your respective country, because whatever country that you come from, we are all sitting under what we call as United Nations, and the whole member country in United Nations have actually signed to the Millennium Development Goal and also the Sustainable Development Goal. These are the two international framework that we will try to understand, and how do we actually figure out how do we actually figure out that these three major issues are actually being addressed by our own respective country as well as by the United Nations. Yeah. So we have actually I think I've discussed a little bit on the Millennium Development Goal and how well we have actually done. And this week I'm just going to continue a little bit before we go into the national framework. Basically, I would like you to be able to relate to these whole issues of sustainability, because again, we understand now that sustainability has encompassed, the three main pillars or main aspects, which again, social, economy, and also environment. And how do we, as engineers later on, will be able to participate and address these three major pillars. Yeah, and I think if you look into the keyword, the word sustain, the meaning of this, the word sustainability comes from the keyword, the basic word sustain. But initially, the global community were worried about, were concerned about environment. So we talk about, there are still a lot of environmental NGOs, people who champion the environment, who actually do a lot of research and do a lot of even demonstrations, in certain countries where some nations actually doing a lot of environmental harm. So the initial movement were related to sustainability of our environment. But then later on, when we relate with the needs of the economy, because we need to be dealing with our environment in order to generate economic activities. And this is where the concern about sustainable development. So in other words, despite the fact that we want to control the environment, we still need to develop to fit in the population's need that we actually have. So the next discussion were about sustainable development, and then the whole issue is that it is not about development, having high-rise building, having mega structures, modern facilities, but when the humanities and human populations remain in hunger, and some of them have no access to educations. So now the whole concept of sustainability has got to engage the whole three. Yeah. So if you can appreciate the shift, yeah, we can see here the shift between this is what we call before this as Millennium Development Goal. Before the Sustainable Development Goal or SDG was actually developed, the world is seen as a Holocene. Holocene, and Holocene is a natural progression of geological transformation. Yeah. So we will, and Anthropocene is that anthro is related to human being, and how much human has actually impacted the change in the earth. So this is where the shift now is actually how much human activities, human interactions have actually impacted the earth, the change in the even the change in the geological and also environment. Yeah. And in the past also, we were working in silo. Different countries were concerned about their own survival, were concerned about their own economic activities, or at least if they collaborate with their few and respective nations. So basically, they were. I mean, we can consider before this the whole world economy were working in silo, but with SDG. We are looking into an integrated activities, yeah. Because whatever that one small country or one big country, even if you are small, if you are big, whatever that you have done or you could do will impact other countries. Like global warming. I think if you have seen the videos from Bhutan, yeah. Despite the fact that they have done their best to take care of the environment, in fact, they are the only country among the very few, the only country probably that is carbon negative, but still, the implications of global warming has actually impacted on them very, very harshly. Yeah. And this is where the integrated concept comes in. Yeah. So we must see the whole world as one big family. Yeah. And the third shift that has actually happened, that is going to take place, although not at the faster rate that the world would like to see, is what we call as a transformation from linear economy to circular economy. So to describe very simply, linear meaning to say that we take the resources, we produce the product, and when the product is actually has been used, they are just thrown out of the system. Actually, they are considered as waste. Yeah. So this is what we call as a linear economy. We are taking from the natural resources, and then we make it for our own use, and then we dump them into a waste. But the concept of circular economy is different. That we are trying to turn every single thing into something that is useful. Yeah? So there is no such thing as waste in circular economy. So and this is what the SDG is trying to strive. So there have been so many examples that businesses have actually managed to turn the business into circular. And in fact, there are more and more businesses are actually being set up to actually address a circular economy. We can discuss about this a little bit more later. And the fourth shift is, in the past we look at the data. In any case, we need to look at the data to make decisions, right? But sometimes our data are very local, and we are not able to gather them from many other parts of the world. And that is actually important when we want to make a global decisions, right? So now the concept of big data is actually being used and being implemented, and this is where, when SDG decided to have the 17 goals, these are all based on the big data. Yeah. So the goals were decided based on evidences, and the evidences are actually obtained from the data that we can actually gather from all over the world. And the fifth shift also is that from being slow, remember that we want, if you take traveling, or tourism as an example, we used to actually go through so many different process. We visited travel agents, we look at the books, but now the system has been so disruptive that you can do everything at the fingertip, because there is an online there is an online reservation, there is hotel, there is airline reservation, hotel accommodation reservation, food reservation. And in the past also, when you talk about Grab and Food Panda, everything is very disruptive now. And this is why the disruptive meaning to say that people who do not own the facilities may run the business about that. Say for example, Food Panda, they don't have restaurant, but they run food business. B&B, B&B, they do not own hotels, but they do run, hotel businesses, in a way, accommodations businesses. And Grab doesn't own any taxi, but they run, these transportation services. So this is what we call as the shift has gone into a very disruptive mode, that many businesses that may disappear. But obviously, when they disappear, there is opportunity for new businesses. So this is what we call as disruptive in the technology. And obviously, IoT and artificial intelligence, augmented realities will come into the picture. So whenever we discuss about this sustainable development goal, we should have in mind all these 6 shifts that we have actually have. Anthropocene, integrated, secular, big data, disruptive, and also IoT. Yeah. So when we look into, just to understand a little bit more about Anthropocene, so basically this is the transformation and change that happen based on human activities. Yeah? Of course, that start to have a very huge impact on the planet's climate and also ecosystem. So I think showing some example here that when some of our countries are actually doing testings for atomic bombs, as an example. Some of them really dropped the bombs already. Yeah? Hiroshima's, Nagasaki, Hiroshima's and Nagasaki is being classic example of how the bomb are not just being tested, they also have been used. Yeah. And of course, the implications of this nuclear has been huge, impacting so this is because of the human activities. And the same thing also when we talk about the development here. Yeah? We cut the forest. You see how the forest has been cut into bare ground. Yeah, and this is where we need to be able to remember that human. So this is where the keyword Anthropocene, anthro, comes in. That we are responsible. We are the one who change the face of the earth. Yeah. So this is what the shift has come about. Yeah. So I've also provided to you. I will share with you the slides that I'm sharing with you here today, because in each of these slides I cited the sources where you can actually go and do further readings, because I think there is some a little bit of assignment that we need to do as a group to really to describe and explain a little bit more from our perspective what each of these SDGs stand for, or the issues really the issues related to social economy and also environmental comes in. Yeah. So the other important document that I want to share with you is the World Economic Forums have actually published what we call as the Global Risk Reports. So they have actually published the Global Risk Report every year. Yeah? And you can see, of course, this is not very, I hope you can see a little bit there in year 2021, extreme weather, climate action, human environmental damage. Of course, in 2021, infectious disease comes in fourth, yeah, in the global risk, and biodiversity loss. So you can see that from 4 or 5 biggest, yeah, this is the biggest global risk. World Economic Forum have actually identified environment are the major issue. In fact, the previous year, yeah, of course, before this pandemic really comes in full blown, risk. The top 5. This is basically the top 5 global risks that World Economic Forum have identified. Include again extreme weather, climate action feature, natural disaster like tsunamis and all, biodiversity, and also biodiversity loss again comes in, and human-made environmental disasters. Of course, human-made environmental disasters is basically an example like atomic bombs, an example what happened in nuclear power plant, that happens recently in Japan. Yeah. So basically, this you can actually see the trend that World Economic Forum have actually identified what would be the biggest risk that So you can see that many of these biggest risks are related to environment, and of course, some of these are also related to social issues, like immunity, pandemic. Also, there is some big concern about immigrations. Remember when there is a war, especially like the one that happened in Yemen, the one that happened in Syria, and previously the one that happened in Kosovo, Bosnia, Serbia, Croatia. So all these actually were also the global risk where the population start big migrations, and even what happened near to our countries, which is what happened in Myanmar as an example, where the citizens of Myanmar have actually flooded Malaysia, flooded Bangladesh. So these are actually a big global risk. They are just not they will create global issues and global problems. So I do hope that this will capture or can capture our understanding of how these 3 issues, social, economy, and also environment, have actually formed some of the biggest risk that the world or the global community have actually faced. Yeah. So I'm also trying to share with you, the changes that's actually taking place by the United Nations. Basically, this is the chronology of sustainable development at United Nations. Yeah. So it started in 1992, where there was a huge movement, related to environment. Yeah. So the concern about the Earth, global warming basically. So there is a UN meetings, summits on environment, and then there was a Millennium Assembly. There was a World Summit on Sustainable Development. There is a Rio. So this Rio 20 basically were the main starting point where SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, were actually being was started. The thinking and the negotiations, the gathering of evidences. So it took about 3 years, from 2012 to 2015 where what we call as Agenda 2030, yeah, which is actually SDG, 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is actually you know um, um, SDG that we are actually referring to. And obviously, during this period, we talk about in 2012, there was already an evaluations of the Millennium Development Goal that we talked about last week. Yeah. Um, so welcome. I think we're still receiving more and more students now. I hope they can just follow us along the way. And I hope while you do this, so I'm still having to open the door, quote unquote, yeah. So okay, as far as the representations of SDG is concerned, basically, it can be represented into it has been represented in many different forms, depending on how people have actually seen this. Remember that we have 17 development goals, 17 goals for SDG, but all these 17 can be summarized into 5. SDG talk about people, SDG talk about prosperity or economy, SDG talk about the planet, which is actually the environment, and obviously SDG talk about peace, yeah, and also SDG talk about partnerships, yeah. So so we can actually, as put down, from the 17 SDG, which one comes under people, which one comes under prosperity or economy, which one comes under planet, which one comes under partnership, and which one also comes under peace. Yeah. And the other important representations, we mentioned this, and I've actually provided you with the videos also with what we call as a circular economy. Yeah. So remember the shift that we talk about from linear economy to circular economy, where it's starting starting from the biosphere or the planet that we are talking about. Yeah, it is no longer about the Earth. It is talking about even the atmospheres. Remember now we are also exploring the space. Yeah, we are putting things on the space. At the same time. Yeah, and we are going to the moon. We are trying to go to the Mars. We are going to explore. So even every single activity that we do related to the whole planet. Yeah? This is why we talk about the planet now. We started talking about the Earth, but now we talk about the planets, and how the societies and community are actually being impacted, and how then the economic activities can be generated. Yeah? Obviously, everything has got to be related into partnership, or what we call as the whole thing. Can be considered as a complete ecosystem to actually ensure the attainment of sustainability. As I mentioned earlier, the word sustainability has been expanded into covering these three major aspects. And okay, so now if we drill down a little bit into we remember that we keep talking about what engineers can do. Basically, there are three key elements. Yeah, three key elements in circular economy. Without these three key elements, our economy are still not circular. They may be linear, or they are going towards circular, but they are not circular. Yeah. Circular economy, number one, it must have a closed cycles, meaning to say that whatever that materials that we use, remember that we talk about there is no such thing as waste. Yeah, every single thing can be recycled. The timber that we use, the aggregate that we use, the petrol petrol cannot be recycled. Yeah, and this is why we talk about number one. Number two is actually about renewable energy. So we are talking about finding alternative source of energy. So only the sources that can be recycles, all the materials. You talk about minerals. Yeah, we have been digging the earth like crazy. Yeah. So in fact, the fact that we want to put we want to use our mobile devices, our smart devices, there are so many different minerals. You can actually Google and find out how many different minerals that we actually have in our smart devices or mobile devices. Yeah. So all these are actually if they are not going to be recycled, then it's going to we are going to finish, and there's the future generation, it cannot be used. Future generation cannot use this anymore, right? So and the residual cycle can be used for different purposes and different functions as well. Even agriculture waste, even agriculture waste, can be turned into not necessarily fertilizers. Some of them have been used already for building materials. Even some building materials has been benefiting from many of the agriculture waste. So I think this is the role of an engineer later on in what we call as in addressing sustainability agendas. So renewable energy, as I said, so this is where our chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, even civil engineers and aerospace engineers looking, when we design our engines, our system, our transportations, our aeroplane, our cars. Of course, now we are looking into what we call as using electric car. Everything is actually powered or solar powered. Everything is related to renewable energy, because these things are there for us to actually use. And also what is also important is that systems thinking. So again, remember that we talk about the silo mentality versus integrated. And this is system thinking, meaning to say that just giving an example, electric car. If you are actually producing electric car and we charge the car batteries, but the energy that we use to charge the battery are still coming from, say, coal, power plant, or still coming from a petrol power plant. So despite us having electric car, but the charging of the batteries, are actually coming from non-renewable resources, then we are also having a problem. So this is what we mean by every actor. Every actor in the economy, be it a company, be it a person, be it organizations, the organisms that we actually use, is connected to other actors. So this is why of course we can actually find out more about system thinking. But again, as I said, that the country do not want to look into only solving one problem, but yet creating another problem, or another problem are not being solved. In fact, they can be made much worse. So this is the matters related to sustainability agendas, and where you can see that there is so much opportunity that engineers can actually start thinking and designing. So for example, developing renewable energy here, and also high value, what they call this, reuse and recycling. In other words, the innovation needs to come in. Even the product design, supply chain collaborations, and this is also related to our own, attitudes towards environment and this circular economy. I think some businesses are only concerned about the basic cost. Sometimes they are using the cheapest, possible alternative, the cheapest possible method, the cheapest possible manufacturing, and the quickest and everything, at the expense of waste, the expense of other things. So, and this is where the society needs to come into the picture, and this is why many of the products now have come with the label that they are sustainable. Remember that we have issues related to palm oil. they are not palm oil is being labeled as not sustainable by certain countries, and therefore they do not buy, they do not support the product that is actually seen as not sustainable in a way. So the producing nations or the producing companies need also to be concerned about whether there are buyers, there are people, or there are economists that actually will be taking their product. So this is why the whole system approach has got to be has got to come into the picture before what we call as a circular economy will come in. Yes, but again, by the time you come out, being an engineer, you should be. I hope you should be more aware of this aspects of circular economies. Yeah? Just giving an example, examples on how engineers can help in some of these agendas. Yeah. So I put down here there are 17 agendas. Agenda number 1, no poverty. So make repair easier. So engineers can make do not make repair of the machines, engines that people say in agriculture farming are actually using, or people who are actually using the motorbike to deliver the food, the Grab food, the Food Panda and everything. Make repair easier. Yeah? So try to develop this, and also reduce food waste. So how do you actually using big data, that when we design our food, we design it in such a way that it's not going to be wasted. Remember that when we go to, I'm sorry if I can use the example, but this is clearly an example, that if we go to the Arabic restaurant as an example, they serve you with a huge portions, that sometimes the Malaysians community, the Asian, the other Asian community are not able to even finish them, but they are just serving them. Of course, this is their culture, to actually serve, the guests in such a big portions. But of course, there are waste, yeah, that comes out of this. So in developing and designing, even the food that we're going to deliver also has got to be thought about very, very carefully. Yeah? And print body parts, you talk about 3D printing, even 4D printings, where precisions, no wastage of the material will come in, will help in this. So, and of course, localized productions. There is reductions in transporting the material. We do not remember that in some years ago, our iron is actually being produced in Bukit Besi in Terengganu, but our manufacturing of iron actually actually set up in Kedah, as an example. So such a waste of transportations, and when you transport the earth materials, there are so many other issues that comes in. Of course, it's going to be more expensive. So localized productions and flexible and efficient manufacturing, reduce logistics. You make things as simple as possible, with what we call as sometimes we even reduce, in Bahasa Malaysia we call it orang tengah, the middleman, yeah, so that you get almost direct between the producer or supplier direct, producer direct into the consumers. Yeah? So and this is where I think the physical forms of retails will come into, probably comes to the end, or become a smaller activities later on. So again, reduce waste productions. Sometimes, example being very simple, when we cut our woods to do, the timber plank, we do our concreting, there are so much waste that's actually happening on site, when we produce, I know for a fact that concreting, yeah, when they are not being planned properly, there are so much waste that's actually happening. Yeah? So this is an example, I believe that engineers can actually play their role in actually addressing the SDG. Yeah? So I think I would like to take a break now, and I believe that I have actually shared with you this link of uh, YouTube, and I hope that many of you have had opportunity to actually view them. They are not that long, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I think maximum maybe about 20 minutes. But they are all very interesting, I believe, because I have actually screened the videos that is actually very educational, and some of these are actually the best videos that you can actually find, explaining very clearly what is sustainability, and the video number 2 is actually related to transformation from Millennium Development Goal into Sustainable Development Goal, um, and giving you an example of one country initiative on addressing these SDGs by being a carbon neutral country. Of course, the biggest culprit in the carbon negative countries, I would say probably United States and also China, because they are one of the biggest consumers and also biggest producers of maybe Japan. It's also all the Japan, German, all these industrial nations are actually carbon negative. Yeah? But now with the SDGs and everything, they will need to come in, and this is why there is a global agreement into this. Yeah? But of course, big country being big countries, sometimes when it doesn't benefit their economy, they would drag their feet, and this is where the transformation of SDG is that making every country accountable by they have to report to the United Nations how well they actually do. Of course, sometimes United Nations cannot do much with respect to countries like United States, China, or other big countries. But then again, globally they would not have been having good reputations along the way, right? Of course, there are so many videos also related to circular economies, but I'm just using this muscle box video as an example of circular economies, and I hope you can actually learn from that. And how I also selected how Canada are actually responding to circular economy, having an example. Yeah. So I hope I'm going to take a break a little bit here, and I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a little bit of time to digest what I have mentioned, and maybe also after this we'll have a little bit of discussion on what I call as your understandings of things. So I have actually I'm sharing with you now the what I call as the surveys a little bit. Yeah. So far there's already 54 people responding, and I do hope that the rest of you can actually start to respond. Provide of course there's a big difference between before you actually listen to my discussion and also after you listen to my discussion. But I'm going to open this a little bit more now, maybe 5 minutes, and please start responding. Yeah. The second, some of you have not, have only done the first page, but have not done the second page. Yeah, because I can see that, only 40 students have gone into the, second page. Yeah. So please, go into the first page, and I will come back I will come back in a few minutes. Yeah.